wait on a shelf for you to find it. It finds you. And the moment it arrives, whether someone hands it to you, whether it falls open in a place you weren't expecting, whether you stumble across a passage that stops you mid-sentence and makes the room go quiet around you, that moment is not coincidence. It is not the random collision of your attention with a piece of paper. It is a gate opening. And the gate opened because something in you finally crossed a frequency threshold that made you visible to what was waiting on the other side. That is what this transmission is about. Not the book as an object, not the words on its pages as literature, but the precise mechanics of why certain texts arrive at certain moments, why the same book you might have held in your hands 5 years ago and put down without a second thought can arrive again now and detonate something in you that cannot be undetonated. Why the words haven't changed, but you have. Why this time you are ready to receive what you could not receive before. And why the fact that you are here, now, listening to this, is itself evidence that you are standing at a threshold that has been waiting for you to reach it. Your time has finally come. Not as a platitude, as a precise description of where you are in a sequence that has been unfolding longer than you've been paying attention to it. Let's begin at the beginning. There is a concept in quantum mechanics called resonance absorption. It describes the phenomenon where a particle or system can only absorb energy at specific frequencies. The frequencies that match its own natural oscillation. When the incoming frequency matches, absorption happens. Energy transfers. The system changes state. When the frequency doesn't match, the energy passes through as if the system were invisible to it, as if it weren't even there. Think about that for a moment. The same transmission, the same signal, the same book, the same teacher, the same idea can pass through you at one frequency and leave no trace. And then, at a different frequency, at a different moment in your development, it hits you with the force of a revelation. Not because the transmission changed, because you did, because your internal oscillation finally matched the frequency of what was being offered. This is why people read books twice and have completely different experiences. This is why a sentence you underlined at 22 means something entirely different at 37. This is why the person who told you something important 3 years ago, something you dismissed or forgot, can say the same thing now, and you hear it as if for the first time, as if they are speaking directly into the center of something you've been carrying without knowing its name. You weren't ready then. You are ready now. And readiness, in quantum terms, is not a passive state. It is not simply the absence of resistance. It is the presence of a matching frequency. It is the arrival at a specific internal configuration that makes you capable of receiving what you could not receive before. And that configuration doesn't happen gradually. It doesn't accumulate in a smooth, upward slope. It happens in thresholds, in crossings, in moments where enough internal pressure has built up that the system tips from one state into another, suddenly, completely, irreversibly. You have been building toward this threshold for longer than you know. And the book, the transmission, the message that finds you now, it is not arriving early. It is not arriving late. It is arriving at the exact moment when your frequency finally matches what it carries. And that matching, that resonance, is what the title of this transmission is pointing at. Not chosen in the sense of being selected by an external authority. Chosen in the sense of having finally become the version of yourself that can receive what was always meant for you. Finally chosen means finally ready, finally arrived at the frequency where the gate opens. If this resonance absorption is landing for you as more than a concept, here is something I want to offer you. Have you spent years shielding yourself from other people's energy, boundaries, releases, energy clearings, and still wake at 3 a.m., running someone else's anxiety? Those tools treat it as outside you. It's not. Your nervous system has adjusted to every room for so long it forgot its baseline. The sealed timeline, a quantum guide to becoming untouchable by wrong frequencies, walks through the 5-step crossing, the adjusting pattern, the breaking point, the crossing itself, what stable feels like, and why old evidence shows up. Every tool you tried treated this as an outside problem. This one ends the adjusting pattern that made you a receiver in the first place. The longer you adjust, the harder it gets to come back to yourself. Open it tonight. It's in the pinned comment below. Now let's continue tracing the precise mechanics of how the book that is meant for you finds its way to you. Let's talk about what it actually means for a book to find you. There is a library in your life that you have been building without knowing it. Not a physical library, though that may be part of it, but a library of encounters. Every book that passed through your hands, every teacher whose words landed or didn't, every conversation that cracked something open or slid off the surface, every idea you dismissed, and every idea that took root. Every transmission that found you too early, and every one that found you at exactly the right moment. This library is not random. It has a shape, and the shape is the shape of your becoming. The books that found you too early, the ones you couldn't absorb, they weren't mistakes. They were deposits. They were laid down in the substrate of your consciousness at a frequency you couldn't yet match. But they were there, waiting. The way certain seeds require a specific temperature to germinate. They can sit in the soil through an entire season that is too cold, dormant, unchanged on the surface. And then, when the temperature finally crosses a threshold, they activate. not gradually, not incrementally. The activation is sudden. The crossing of the temperature threshold is the gate. You have seeds like this in you right now. Ideas that were planted years ago that have been waiting for you to reach the temperature at which they germinate. And some of them are germinating right now. Some of them crossed the threshold recently. Some of them are crossing it today. The book that finds you when you are finally chosen is the book that arrives at the moment of germination. It is the external signal that matches the internal activation. It is the voice from outside that names what has just come alive inside, and in naming it, makes it real. This is the mechanics of being found. You don't find the book. The book finds you, because you have finally become the receiver that its signal can reach. If this transmission is finding you at the right moment, take a second to like this video and subscribe so the next one can find you too. Now, let's get specific about what has been happening to you. There is a particular kind of internal experience that precedes the arrival of the book, that changes everything. It is not dramatic. It is actually very quiet. It is the experience of an old way of being that has stopped working, not with a crash, not with a crisis, but with a kind of slow, steady, undeniable ceasing. Like a signal that has been fading for a long time, finally going to static. Like a frequency you've been broadcasting on for years that is no longer producing a response from the world around you. You may have felt this as restlessness, as a low-grade dissatisfaction with things that used to satisfy you, as a sense that the life you have built, which may be a good life, which may be a life that other people would envy, no longer quite fits the shape of who you are becoming. Like a coat that was exactly right for a previous winter, and now pulls at the shoulders and sits wrong, and you can't stop noticing it. Or you may have felt it as a kind of silence, a strange stillness that descended and that you couldn't explain. Not depression, not emptiness, but a quality of waiting, as if everything in your life was holding its breath, as if the usual noise of your thoughts and your plans and your habitual concerns had quieted enough that you could hear something underneath it, something that has been trying to get your attention for a long time. Or you may have felt it as a series of endings, things falling away, relationships completing, chapters closing, not always with pain, though sometimes with pain, sometimes with a clarity that surprised you, a recognition that something was finished, that it had served its purpose, that holding on would be the mistake, not letting go. These experiences, the restlessness, the stillness, the endings, they are not problems to be solved. They are not symptoms of something wrong. They are the approach to the gate. They are the specific internal conditions that precede a threshold crossing. They are your consciousness reorganizing itself in preparation for a state change that is already underway. In physics, this is called a phase transition. Water doesn't turn to ice gradually. It supercools, dropping below the freezing point while remaining liquid, sometimes by several degrees, in a state of unstable equilibrium. And then, at a certain moment, with the right trigger, sometimes just a vibration, sometimes just a single nucleation point, the entire system snaps into the new state, all at once, completely. The water doesn't partially freeze, it crosses the threshold. You have been in a state of supercooling. You have been below the threshold of the new state, while still holding the form of the old one. And the restlessness, the stillness, the endings, these are the supercooled state. This is the unstable equilibrium just before the snap. And the book that finds you now, the transmission that arrives at this exact moment, is the nucleation point. It is the single vibration that triggers the phase transition. It is the external catalyst for an internal crossing that was already primed and waiting. Heaven can't wait. That phrase is not hyperbole. It is a description of the state you're in. The new configuration of your life, the one that is waiting on the other side of this threshold, is not patient. It is not content to remain potential indefinitely. There is a pressure that builds in the supercooled state, a tension between what you are and what you are becoming. And that tension is not comfortable. It is not meant to be comfortable. It is the pressure of a phase transition that needs to happen. And the longer it is delayed, the more that pressure builds until the nucleation point arrives and the crossing happens, suddenly, completely, all at once. You are at that nucleation point right now. Let's talk about what it means to be chosen. The word carries religious weight. It carries the implication of an external authority making a selection. And that framing, while it points at something real, misses the actual mechanics. Because being chosen is not passive. Being chosen is not something that happens to you while you remain unchanged. Being chosen is the recognition that you have arrived at a specific configuration of consciousness that makes you capable of carrying something you could not carry before. Think about the way a radio tower broadcasts a signal continuously. The signal doesn't wait for a specific receiver to tune in. It is always broadcasting. The question is only whether any given receiver is tuned to the right frequency. When you tune to the frequency, you receive the signal. The tower didn't choose you. But from your perspective, from the inside of the experience of suddenly receiving what you couldn't receive before, it feels exactly like being chosen. Because in a very real sense, you have been. Not by an external will, but by the logic of frequency matching. By the fact that you have finally become the receiver that this signal can reach. And here is what changes everything about that framing. If you are chosen because you have arrived at the frequency, then the question is not whether you are worthy of being chosen. The question is what you did to get here, what you endured, what you released, what you refused to stop becoming even when it was hard, what you kept moving toward even when the path wasn't clear. Because the frequency you are at right now is not an accident. It is the result of every threshold you have already crossed. Every smaller gate you stepped through that prepared you for this one. Every version of yourself you outgrew and released. Every time you chose growth over comfort, truth over familiarity, becoming over staying the same. You earned this frequency. And the book that finds you now, the transmission that arrives at this exact moment, it is not a reward for good behavior. It is a resonance confirmation. It is the universe reflecting back at you the frequency you have reached. It is saying, in the only way the universe knows how to say things, which is through experience, through encounter, through the precise timing of what arrives in your life and when, you are ready. You have crossed enough thresholds to cross this one. The gate is open. Now, let's talk about the parable. There were two scholars who studied at the same house of learning. Their names were Mira and Callum, and they had come to the same texts at the same time, had sat in the same rooms, had heard the same teachers, had access to the same library. From the outside, their paths looked identical, but from the inside, they were completely different. Mira read with urgency. She consumed texts the way someone who is starving consumes food, quickly, greedily, moving from one to the next without fully digesting any of them. She wanted to have read everything. She wanted to have covered the ground. There was a quality of acquisition in her approach, as if the knowledge were a possession she was accumulating, as if the number of books she had finished were a measure of how far she had traveled. Callum was slower, frustratingly slow, some of his teachers thought. He would spend weeks on a single chapter. He would return to the same passage again and again, not because he didn't understand it, but because he felt there was something in it he hadn't yet received. He had a quality of waiting in him, a willingness to sit at the edge of a text and let it work on him rather than working on it. His teachers sometimes wondered if he was falling behind. Years passed, and then one day, in the library that they had both used for years, a book arrived that neither of them had seen before. It was old. Its arrival was unremarkable. It sat on a shelf with other books. Mira walked past it 3 times. She picked it up once, read the first page, decided it wasn't what she was looking for, and put it back. She had read so many books. She was looking for something specific. This didn't feel like it. Callum sat down with it. He didn't choose it for any particular reason. He wasn't looking for anything specific that day. He had been sitting with a question for several months, a question he couldn't articulate precisely, a question that was more of a feeling than a question, the feeling of standing at the edge of something he couldn't yet see. He picked up the book the way you might pick up a stone on a path, not because you're collecting stones, but because something about this particular stone, its weight, its texture, the way the light falls on it, makes you want to hold it for a moment. He opened it, and the first sentence he read named the question he had been unable to articulate. Not approximately, not in the general vicinity, precisely, with a precision that made him feel, for a moment, that the book had been written specifically for him, that whoever had written it had somehow known he would be here, in this library, on this day, holding this question without words, that the book had been waiting. He read for 8 hours without stopping. When Mira found him that evening, she saw something in his face that she recognized but couldn't name, a quality of having crossed something, of being on the other side of a threshold she hadn't noticed was there. She asked him what he was reading, and he showed her. She said she had looked at that book. She said it hadn't seemed like anything. He nodded. He said he knew. He said he didn't think it was the book that had changed. He thought it was him. Mira took the book home that night. She read it carefully, with the same attention she gave everything. And it was good. She could see that it was good. But it didn't do to her what it had done to Callum. The sentences that had detonated something in him landed for her as competent, interesting, useful. She finished it in 2 days and moved on to the next book on her list. What was the difference? The difference was not intelligence. Mira was, by most measures, the more capable scholar. The difference was not effort. She had worked harder than almost anyone. The difference was the question. Callum had been living inside a question for months, a question he couldn't articulate, a question that had been working on him from the inside, creating a kind of internal space, a hollow in his consciousness, shaped exactly like the answer the book was carrying. And when the book arrived, it fell into that space like a key, into a lock, precisely, completely, irreversibly. Mira had no such space. She had been filling every space as fast as it opened. She had been so busy acquiring that she had never learned to be empty enough to receive. The book hadn't chosen Callum over Mira. The book had found the receiver that was tuned to its frequency. And Callum was tuned because he had been willing to sit with the question without rushing to the answer. He had been willing to be in the supercooled state, in the unstable equilibrium of not yet knowing, long enough for the internal pressure to build to the point where the right nucleation could trigger the phase transition. He had been willing to wait at the gate, and because he had waited when the gate opened, he was standing right at it. He didn't have to run back from somewhere else. He was already there. He crossed without hesitation, because he had already done the work of arriving at the threshold. This is the parable of the book that finds you. The question is not whether the book will arrive. The question is whether you will be empty enough, present enough, tuned enough to receive it when it does. I want to pause here and ask you something. Has there been a moment in your life when you knew with absolute certainty that you had crossed a point of no return? A moment when everything shifted at once, when the old version of you completed and the new one became undeniable? Leave it in the comments. Not as a story to be analyzed, but as a marker. A record that you were here, at this frequency, at this moment. Let's talk about what it means to be empty enough. In the Zen tradition, there is a teaching about the full cup. You cannot pour tea into a cup that is already full. The cup must be empty to receive. This is usually taught as a lesson about intellectual humility, about not being so full of your own opinions that you can't receive new information. And that is part of it. But it is only part of it. The deeper emptiness is not the emptiness of having no opinions. It is the emptiness of having released the old state, of having allowed the previous version of yourself to complete, of having stopped trying to hold together a configuration that has already run its course. This is what the endings are for. The things falling away in your life right now, the chapters that are closing, the patterns that have stopped working. These are not failures. These are the cup emptying. These are your consciousness releasing the old configuration to make space for the new one. And the instinct, the very human instinct, is to resist this, to try to refill the cup as fast as it empties, to replace what is ending with something that looks similar, to stay in motion, to stay full, to avoid the discomfort of the in-between. But the in-between is the gate. The emptiness is the threshold. The stillness you've been feeling, the sense of waiting, the quality of being between two worlds, that is not a problem. That is the crossing. That is the supercooled state where the phase transition is primed and waiting for the nucleation point. And if you rush to fill it, if you replace the old configuration before the new one has had a chance to arrive, you will find yourself back at the beginning of the cycle. Still full, still unable to receive, still waiting for a book that can't find you because you are not empty enough to hold it. Heaven can't wait, and neither can you. But waiting is not the same as doing nothing. Waiting, in this sense, is an active practice. It is the practice of remaining present at the threshold, without fleeing back to the familiar, and without rushing forward into the unknown. It is the practice of holding the question without demanding the answer. It is the practice of being in the supercooled state, without trying to force the phase transition before it is ready. This is the hardest thing, and it is the most important thing. Let's talk about the specific experience of being at this threshold right now. If you are here, if this transmission found you, then something in the last several months, or perhaps the last several years, has been preparing you for a crossing that is imminent. And there are specific signs of this preparation that you may recognize. The first sign is that the old map stopped working. You have a map of reality. Everyone does. It is the accumulated set of assumptions, strategies, and frameworks through which you navigate your life. Some of these came from your family, some from your culture, some from your own experience, some from the books and teachers and encounters that shaped you. This map has served you. It got you here. But maps are made for specific territories, and when the territory changes, the map becomes unreliable, and the territory of your life has been changing, not necessarily in dramatic external ways, though perhaps in those ways too, but internally. The territory of who you are has been shifting. The landscape of what matters to you, what you want, what feels true, has been changing in ways that your old map doesn't account for. And you have been noticing, with increasing frequency, that the map and the territory no longer match, that you keep arriving at places the map didn't predict, that the routes the map suggests lead somewhere other than where you want to go. This is not a failure of the map. The map was accurate for a previous version of the territory. It is simply that you have crossed enough thresholds that the territory has changed, and a new map is needed. And the book that finds you now, the transmission that arrives at this exact moment, it is not more information to add to the old map. It is the new map. It describes a territory that the old map didn't know existed. And when you receive it, when you actually receive it rather than just reading the words, the old map becomes unnecessary. Not wrong exactly, just superseded, just no longer the map you need for where you are going. The second sign is that your questions have changed. A few years ago, you were asking certain kinds of questions. Questions about how to get somewhere. Questions about what to do. Questions about how to make things work. These are good questions. They are the questions of someone who is navigating a known territory with a map. But lately, the questions have been different, deeper, less answerable by the usual methods. Questions like, what is this actually for? Questions like, who am I when I'm not performing the version of myself that other people know? Questions like, what would I do if I weren't afraid? Not of any specific thing, but of the general weight of what it means to fully become what I am. Questions like, what is being asked of me now? And do I have the courage to say yes? These questions don't have answers in the old library. They require a new transmission. They require a book that was written from the other side of the threshold you are approaching, by someone or something that knows the territory you are about to enter. And the arrival of these questions in your life is not a sign of confusion. It is a sign of approach. It is the sign that you are close enough to the gate to see the questions that only make sense from that proximity. The third sign is that you have been experiencing what might be called the collapse of the comfortable. Things that used to make you feel safe. Certain identities, certain relationships, certain ways of spending your time and attention. Certain stories you told about yourself and your life have been losing their power to comfort. Not because they are best, but because you have outgrown them. Because the frequency you are at now is higher than the frequency at which those comforts operate. And the discomfort of this is real. The loss of the familiar scaffolding is real. But it is also the sign of a specific kind of growth, the kind that requires you to release the previous structure before the new one is fully visible. This is the most disorienting phase of any threshold crossing, because you are no longer held by the old structure, and the new structure has not yet materialized. You are in free fall, or what feels like free fall, but you are actually in flight. You are in the space between states. And the book that finds you now, the transmission that arrives in this exact moment, is the first solid ground on the other side. It is the thing your foot lands on when you step through the gate. Think about where you are standing right now in your own life. Is there a threshold you can feel but haven't yet named? A gate that has been open longer than you've been willing to admit? Tell me in the comments what it feels like from the inside, because someone else reading your words may recognize their own crossing in yours. Let's talk about what is on the other side, because the gate is not just an ending, it is a beginning, and the beginning is specific. It is not a vague promise of something better. It is a precise new configuration of consciousness that becomes available to you on the other side of this crossing. The first thing that changes is your relationship with time. On this side of the gate, time is experienced as pressure. There is never enough of it. It is always running out. The future is a place where things might go wrong, and the past is a place where things did go wrong, and the present is a thin, anxious strip between two kinds of threat. This relationship with time is not a personality trait. It is a frequency. It is the frequency of a consciousness that is operating below its threshold, that is holding a configuration it has already outgrown, that is expending enormous energy, maintaining a state that is no longer natural. On the other side of the gate, time changes. Not because you have more of it, but because your relationship with it shifts from pressure to presence. The urgency that was anxiety becomes the urgency of aliveness. The sense of running out of time becomes the sense of being fully in time, of being here, now, in this moment, which is the only moment that the crossing ever happens in. Because the gate is always in the present. It is never in the past. which is already crossed. It is never in the future, which is not yet here. It is here, now. And on the other side of the crossing, you live in the now with a fluency you couldn't access before, not as a practice, as a natural state. The second thing that changes is your relationship with your own authority. On this side of the gate, authority is something that comes from outside, from credentials, from approval, from the validation of people who you have decided are qualified to tell you whether you are on the right track. And this is not a weakness. It is the appropriate orientation of a consciousness that is still in formation, that is still learning from the structures that preceded it. But at a certain threshold, the orientation needs to flip. The authority needs to move from outside to inside. Not arrogantly, not in a way that dismisses external wisdom, but in the sense that you become the primary reference point for your own life. You become the one who knows, not the one who is waiting to be told. The book that finds you when you are finally chosen is often the book that makes this flip. It is the book that speaks to you, not as a student who needs to be taught, but as a knower who needs to be reminded. It does not give you new information so much as it articulates what you already know at a depth that your surface mind hasn't been able to access. And in articulating it, it hands the authority back to you. It says, "You already knew this. You have always known this." The crossing is not into new knowledge. It is into the full ownership of what you already carry. The third thing that changes is your relationship with your purpose. On this side of the gate, purpose is often experienced as something you are searching for, something outside yourself that